So hello, we're here right now with Miss Cathy Cochelin. And Miss Cochelin is going to talk to us a little bit about her experiences as a journalist. So can you tell us, how did you decide to go into that career field before teaching?
Okay, when I was a sophomore in high school, my school had a really good newspaper,
Mm-hmm.
and I signed up for the class when I was in the 10th grade. And I realized right away that it was something that I enjoyed. Always had loved the news. I watched
Mm-hmm.
when people went to the moon, when we got new
Mm-hmm.
presidents and
Right,
everything.
right.
So I was very interested in the news. And of course, that was back then when you only had CBS, NBC, and ABC.
Right.
There wasn't all this round the clock news and everything. And my family got a daily newspaper, a large city newspaper in North Carolina. So as a sophomore, I had a very encouraging journalism teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And all my friends were on the newspaper staff. I was not, ironically, on the yearbook staff.
Wow.
But I was on the newspaper staff.
Uh-huh.
And so as I got closer to going to college, living in North Carolina, UNC Chapel Hill had the only journalism school in North Carolina. And I did not want to leave the state to go to college. So I went to UNC, graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Journalism.
Okay.
And I had the credits for a minor in English. And of course, journalism and English are very connected.
Mm-hmm.
So the better you are at grammar and punctuation and everything, the better journalist.
Were you a good student in English?
Yes,
in high
very
school?
good.
Okay.
Yes, very good. That
Okay.
was one of my favorite subjects.
So you would probably advise, if somebody wants to be a journalist, that they need to be really studying hard in the English classes.
Yes, and especially your writing. I mean, the writing is everything.
Okay.
The photography skills I learned later in college, but in high school it was the writing. And actually, I interviewed people, wrote articles, and I was surprised that I had a talent for it, or I felt like I had a talent for it.
Okay.
And so that's when I decided to go to UNC.
Okay. So can you talk to us a little bit, how did you come to be here and then go into the newspaper business?
Right. Well, my first job out of college was at a newspaper in North Carolina.
Okay.
It came out 5 days a week. The editor, the publisher and owner was a very well-known North Carolina journalist, and he hired me as his news editor, which was really good for someone just out of college.
Right.
And that's how I got my experience from him. And what he always told us was the most important thing you can do is get a person's name correct.
Right.
A person's name is all they really have that's theirs.
Exactly.
And we always learn to spell correctly and everything. And then I wanted to go back closer to my home, so I went to a larger paper in Asheville, North Carolina, and where I became a medical reporter.
Wow.
So I actually got to observe open heart surgeries back when open heart surgery was something fairly new.
Right.
And not done every day. And just all kinds of different things like that. And opportunity to meet a lot of famous people and do interviews with them.
So looking back on your time in that field, what do you think was the part you enjoyed the most?
I enjoy learning a lot about a lot of different things. So you have to become almost an instant expert in whatever subject. And after I got married and moved up here, I was the editor of one of the local papers. And as far as I know, I'm the first female newspaper editor in Mecklenburg County.
Wow, that is awesome.
And
yes.
then I stayed there for 15 years at that paper here, close by, not in South Hill, but in Mecklenburg County. And about that time, newspapers began to take a different role in society. Your news was being delivered 24 hours a day, instantly. And I kind of saw where newspapers were not going to be what they used to be when I first got started. So I decided to take my love of journalism and bring it here to Parkview High School.
To share it.
Yes, as the yearbook advisor and photojournalism teacher. And I love it because I get to do all the things I always loved in journalism and at the newspapers, but I just do it in a different way now.
And it's
that's
neat.
why I love it.
because
It
you can
is.
share it with the students. So just to clarify, for our students that might be interested in becoming a journalist, when they would go out after their education and training, normally you would start as a writer. You started as an editor,
I
right?
started as an editor, which was unusual, but I also did a lot of writing, and I still do a lot of writing. And people have their own styles,
Mhm.
and for years, I spent years developing my style. And you could pretty much tell now if you read a lot of my older things and
Mhm.
my newer things, which I do still write a lot. You could pretty well tell that it was mine.
Okay.
But at the large paper, the city paper I was at, we had to do a lot of things that we thought were crazy. Like if once the city had a water shortage
Mhm.
and there was a drought, and we had to cover every angle. We used to laugh about some of the silly angles that we did, how the water shortage affected this group of people and this group of people and the tourism and
Mhm.
everything. So, but I do love teaching the photojournalism and
Okay.
doing the yearbook. So this will be my 17th yearbook.
Awesome. I have one last question for you. For any of our students that are taking part in the virtual career fair today, what advice would you give somebody that wants to become a journalist?
Okay, there's a lot of different routes you can take, depending on what you're interested in. And we have a class now called Visual Storytellers
Mm-hmm.
that we're introducing those students to a different avenues. You can go broadcasting.
Right.
You could go, internet news. You can go the photography route where there's a whole lot of careers in photography,
Mm-hmm.
wedding, nature, travel, anything you're interested in. So, and then the kinds of writing, like the one time only wrote about medical things.
Right.
I was in a big medical community, but it depends on your interest, and you can do magazines, newspapers, newsletters, books, anything, editing, a book editor.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of different avenues for somebody that's interested in something like
and
that.
of course the pay scales would depend on which avenue you took. And also it's very heavily related to where you live and work.
Can you talk about that for just a second?
Yes. Okay. So when you're in a small place, of course, it's going to be less money probably.
Right.
Until you work your way up the ladder. In cities, even a photography career would pay you more than it would in a small place,
Okay.
where you could have more customers in a larger city. So there's a lot of different things that come under the journalism umbrella. And the more, I've done a lot of them. The photography, back in the days when we had to use a darkroom to actually use chemicals to process our film,
Mm-hmm.
film in the camera.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, now, but once I saw a digital camera, I was hooked.
I'm sure.
No going back to film.
I'm sure.
At all.
So there's a lot of different avenues if you're interested in writing, photography, and if you're here at Parkview High School, of course, Ms. Cochelin would be a really wonderful resource for you to come and talk to. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it.
Great, thanks.